I've done thousands of case studies of birth charts, and one thing is super clear to me. It's that we all have a message to share with the world in some way. And Mercury is the planet of your message. And in Vedic astrology, it shows you where Mercury was placed when you were born and the gifts that you have to bring out in your life through your voice, your communication, and what you learn, your intelligence. I'm Jeremy Devins. This is the Quietmind Astrology Podcast, and everything here is based on 20 plus years of experience and thousands of case studies. And if you're new, get your free Vedic birth chart, which is based on astronomy, unlike Western astrology. And that's at quietmindastrology.com, which is off center on the video. So I need to fix that now. So there's a Virgo detail, which is one of my strengths, is the Virgo side of things. Everyone has different strengths. And when I see a detail out of place, I want to address it, which maybe becomes a weakness as well. But we all have Mercury somewhere in our charts, and Virgo somewhere in your chart, Gemini somewhere in your chart, and these are all ruled by Mercury. So let's dive into how to work with this, the deeper meaning of Mercury in your chart. As above, so below, as I've mentioned in this series, is if we want to understand our personal lives, we can look up to the skies. If we want to understand the transits and like when Mercury goes retrograde, what does it mean? How do we work with it? We can just look at the actual movement of the planets and then see how it affects us on Earth. And that's what all my research is about. So Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. And if we actually observe it, we see that it moves very fast. It only takes 88 days for Mercury to move around the sun. But from our perspective on Earth, it takes about a year. Because the way we see it and the relationship from the Earth to Mercury, basically we have Mercury retrograde about 3 times every year. And then it takes about a year as we see the Mercury is moving near the sun all year from our perspective on Earth. So Mercury is never more than 1 sign away from the sun. And it moves quickly like messengers do. So it's the fastest moving graha in our solar system. And that's where we get the name Mercury, is because it means the messenger. And if you know anything about the old profession of being a messenger, you have to run very far, very fast from town to town, village to village, delivering a message. And the modern day version is like a courier going around a city. But even more so is the modern expression of this is information technology and the internet, where information can travel immediately in a lot of cases. So it governs the message that we bring, how you think, how you speak, how you connect with others, how you deliver your message. Are you more blunt? Are you slower, more steady? And we're going to look at some examples of famous people and how they communicate with their Mercury, including Taylor Swift, Steve Jobs, and more. But this is why your thoughts can move so fast, because Mercury, the messenger, moves quickly. Our thoughts move quickly. Our ideas move quickly. And sometimes we can be very overactive and have a very scattered mind. So when that happens, we can do things to remedy it. We'll talk about later as well. Any message you deliver is going to require some level of charm, persuasion, connection, communication, intelligence, and how you do it. Even if it's just like wanting to go out on a date with your spouse, like there's some level of these things going on there. Or whether it's selling something or buying something, communicating with friends, sharing ideas. This is all Mercury. So it's a very, very important part of our lives. It governs everything related to IT, information technology as well, which has become super, very important to everyone in the Western world. And from phones to computers to cell phones, back to pagers, back to dial-up modems, all the way to Starlink and wireless internet and everything today. That's all Mercury. And those things all move quickly. Technology moves very fast, and it just keeps moving faster. And that's a very Mercury kind of thing as well. And it also governs the nervous system. So the nervous system is essentially the information technology of your body. So when you touch a hot stove, the nervous system sends signals of pain to not do that again, and you learn something from it. Or if you experience trauma or stress, your nervous system sends signals that this is a stressful situation. It overwhelms the system, and there's a stress response. Or if you develop your nervous system through resilience practices like yoga, And this is actually one of the things I love about yoga so much is it helped me get out of a perpetual freeze response that my nervous system adapted to from my childhood. And I learned how to have a healthy fight response and like get out of freeze and get into movement through like vinyasa yoga and power yoga, which are very vigorous, but very mindful and very sustainable and very able to like do that. You could do that every day for life, right? Versus like a hit workout, which can be pretty taxing on the body and the nervous system. And if you do that every day, you're more likely, especially for me, more likely to get sick, or you may experience this as well. You get overwhelmed or burned out more easily when you're really pushing your nervous system a lot. But yogic practices are meant to sort of sustainably push or relax the nervous system. And a lot of times the nervous system may need a little more of the opposite of what's going on. Like if you have a very busy, fast paced life, then your yoga practice or sort of balancing practice for your nervous system probably going to be slower and more stable and grounding to balance out the high paced life. Most people don't do it that way though, right? See a lot of people like running around all day drinking coffee. When I was working in yoga studios all the time, we would see this all the time where like people would run into class, they come in 5 minutes late, and then as soon as Shavasana starts, they leave early. And it's like they need it the most and they're skipping it and they're not getting the grounding at the beginning or the integration at the end. And then those people are most likely to get burned out, all the negative sort of challenging sides of the nervous system. And vice versa too. Some people who could use some more activation would be really drawn to the slower restorative kind of classes where things could get more heavy and more stuck for them emotionally and energetically. So the nervous system needs a balance and regulation, and that's like the main thing I find so useful of yoga and this yogic skill of sister science of Jyotish, of Vedic astrology. So that's why I teach both. They're so powerful together, and that's all Mercury stuff. Mercury shows where you seek clarity and skill in your life, wants to understand and wants to develop understanding and skill and awareness. The Sanskrit word for Mercury is Buddhi, which means the intellect, or you could say the awakened one. The Buddha is the name given to somebody who has reached enlightenment, or Buddhi is another version of Buddha. And in the planetary cabinet, it's the prince. So not the king or queen, like the sun and moon, but the prince, maybe next in line to the king. Maybe it's like going to develop into more of a king energy. Princess, maybe more of a Venus energy. We'll talk about on the next episode in this series. But the prince, we all have some level of this, man or woman, some level of this prince energy, like an aspiration to develop, maybe sometimes an impatience with the stage you're at, but also some level of there's something that you're meant to move into and grow into, and you're finding it. The main keywords to keep in mind when you think about Mercury, think about speech, intellect, learning, trade, writing and media, wit, and how did that all these things can express for us through our communication and our writing, our friendships, and our learning when we're learning things. And all of these themes are very prominent, especially where Mercury is in your chart, in your sign, in your house, your nakshatra, which we'll cover in future episodes. But in general, when you hear Mercury, think about these words. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, so it's especially strong in those signs. But again, we all have these signs somewhere in the chart. So you might not have anything in your 11th house, and Gemini is there in your 11th house. So you don't have a sun, ascendant, moon, no planets there. But Mercury is ruling it. So it's almost like Mercury is in your 11th house then. And all these things we're talking about Mercury would then affect your networks, your income, and so on. So it's very important to know the signs and the rulers, and Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. Mercury is exalted in Virgo. It's its highest expression, best placement you can have, but kind of doesn't matter because wherever Mercury is, you can bring out favorable expressions of it, and there's going to be challenging expressions no matter what sign Graha is in. And Mercury's debilitated in Pisces. And again, it kind of doesn't matter, but this placement, you may struggle more with logistical, practical things, doing things by others' rules, and needing to find your own way of doing things. As the most famous Mercury in Pisces is Albert Einstein, who said imagination is more important than logic, which is a very Mercury in Pisces kind of thing. And obviously, he's a very intelligent, successful mathematician and scientist. So Mercury worked out, but there's definitely challenges with it, but there's also strengths with every placement. When Mercury is deficient, regardless of the sign, house, or nakshatra, Mercury can be essentially deficient, like we're not bringing out the gifts of your message, your communication. What you are here to communicate to the world is not quite getting out. So you may be feeling more confused, having poor communication, having difficulty learning. Because Mercury is going to need more strengthening through study, practice, and communication and connection. Voicing your opinion, sharing your message, refining your message. And that's what's in your heart, what needs to come out through your words. And that's the throat chakra. The words come out through the voice, but it's an expression of the heart chakra, which also has the color green like Mercury. So when we connect to our hearts and express from that place, communication becomes clear. When Mercury is excessive, we got too much Mercury going on, then we get these, very chatty people, very animated, very gossipy people. We can go into overthinking things. We can have anxiety, nervous system issues like this, getting into too much of our ego rather than our wisdom, which is more Jupiter. Mercury and Jupiter are kind of at odds. There's a whole mythology of this. But the short version is when we're in our wisdom, like philosophy, spirituality, connection to source, universe, that's Jupiter. When we are in our intelligence, understanding things, analyzing, scrutinizing, that's your Mercury placement. Regardless of the sign or house, that's how you think critically about things is Mercury. And you could be thinking critically too much about yourself, about others, too much in your ego, identification with this is mine, this is me, look at me. That's all Mercury overactive. The mind becomes scattered with too many inputs. And this is the issue with the information age that we have been in. And I think we're moving much more into an embodiment age, which is more of an embodied intelligence in the physical body. But Mercury is the head intelligence, the logic, and it becomes scattered. And we get these negative expressions when we have too much input. And that's just like easier than ever. And it's so common now with the information age and all the technology. But it's more important than ever to balance that out with time without inputs and time to listen to your inner guidance of the Jupiter energy within you, your inner wisdom. But your Mercury is going to show you like where you might tend to take in too many inputs, too many ideas. And especially if it's debilitated or challenged, it can be a little confusing, more challenging. More likely the challenging things will come out with the debilitation. More likely the favorable things will come out with the exaltation. But again, it all depends so much on the chart and how you work with it. When it's excessive, your words can become fast, sharp, and hard to contain. It can become like a lawyer, like an auctioneer, too fast, too many ideas. When Mercury is aligned, though, we have clear speech, good humor, adaptability, intelligence. Adaptability is one of the big keywords with Mercury. And intelligence, like we know ourselves, we know what we're talking about, we're clear in how we communicate, we're playful, we can go with the flow, and we can be intentional as well. You can respond skillfully without losing your center. So let's see some examples of famous people who have their Mercury placements, like Taylor Swift, who has Mercury in Sagittarius in Purvashada.
We established this thing that we love to do, and we call it the rant bridge. I could point to examples like Out of the Woods, Is It Over Now, Cruel Summer, and oftentimes we love these rant bridges where it's basically like stream of consciousness, endless pouring out of emotion, intrusive thoughts, like blended with metaphor, with discussion, with shouting. Like you want this rant bridge to feel the most intense of what that feeling is that you're trying to establish over the course of the song. And you want it to kind of be a crescendo.
Or Steve Jobs, who has Mercury in Capricorn and Shravana, who Steve Jobs is known for some of his very abrasive speech. But I think this interesting clip kind of gets to the core underneath why he could be like that. And it comes from a Capricorn place, which is actually much more concerned with what he's building. Very interesting.
I now take a longer term view on people. In other words, when I see something not being done right, my first reaction isn't to go fix it. It's to say, we're building a team here and we're going to do great stuff for the next decade, not just the next year. And so, what do I need to do to help so that the person that's screwing up learns? Versus how do I fix the problem?
Andrew Huberman, who actually teaches Yoga Nidra, but he's a scientist and he teaches Yoga Nidra as well. And that's Mercury in Libra. Like, he's intelligent about what restores balance and harmony of Libra. And he's built quite an interesting empire of what he does with Chitra, which is about these kind of things.
The practice that for me has really helped reduce stress and allowed me to fall asleep more easily and control my state of mind late in the evening, this practice that some people call Yoga Nidra, which literally means yoga sleep. And that practice of taking 20 or 30 minutes a day, and it doesn't have to be done every day, and lying down and doing a sort of body scan. It involves some long exhale breathing, which is very relaxing to the nervous system, and really allowing the mind to enter one of these pseudo-sleep states. We know from work in my laboratory and work that I'm doing with David Spiegel's laboratory, as well as work from other labs, that state of shallow nap or shallow sleep done in waking allows the brain to, and the person, to get better at turning off their thoughts and falling asleep in the evening.
And you may not know the name Aaron Sorkin, but he's a screenwriter who's written many famous movies like The Social Network and The West Wing, the TV show, which is, his work is known for. It's very fast, very witty, very clever, very insightful dialogue. And usually he has more words per minute than any other screenwriter. So lots of Mercury energy, very strong in Gemini. So Mercury in Gemini, and this is how he thinks about the words he uses.
It's not just that dialogue sounds like music to me. It actually is music.
Anytime that you're speaking out loud for the sake of performance, those words, what you're saying, have all of the properties of music.
Dialogue has rhythm, and pitch, and tone, and volume, and meter, and it absolutely has all the properties of music.
And as mentioned, if you've got a debilitated Mercury, you're okay. You're in good company of Albert Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci, who had a lot of creative interests, and both these people are very intelligent in their own way, very creative in their own way. So some favorable things you can do to bring out more of the better side of the Mercury placement in your chart: studying, reading, sharpening your skills, writing, teaching what you've learned, and practicing mantras. Very good. I love bhajans or kirtans, chanting with mantra. The Vedic mantra is very powerful for strengthening your communication of your Mercury. Another very favorable thing actually is attributed to the Buddha a lot, which is like Mercury, the Buddhi. The Buddha is attributed this right speech, right communication. So this idea of the three gates, before you say anything, run it through these three filters of, is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if we run our communication through those filters, usually we might end up saying a lot less. And we might be speaking from a much more heart-centered place. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And if it's not, then maybe don't say it. Now, some unfavorable things you might find yourself doing that's going to bring out more of the challenging side of this Mercury in your chart is gossiping, manipulating with words, gaslighting, overthinking, overanalyzing, analysis paralysis, especially for the Virgo dominant people, scattering your energy across too many ideas. This is like the information overload, the modern times. Very easy to do this. So when you do these things, you're going to have more of the challenges of the Mercury. And when Mercury is aligned, again, we have clear speech, humor, playfulness, adaptability, and intelligence coming through in all that we do. And you can respond skillfully without losing your center. So if you want to know more about your Mercury or anything in your chart, go to quietmindastrology.com, get your free Vedic chart, and there's a little training there as well, so you can start to decode your chart, and we can meet one-on-one, look at Mercury or any placement. If you're going through a Mercury dasha, this is especially important, or Mercury retrogrades, also a good time for working with this. And if you don't know about the dashas, well, that'll be another episode for another time. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave a comment on YouTube and Spotify, share it with a friend, subscribe, and I'll share more with you soon.